Halo 3. And so I started getting involved in the Halo 3 forum and all these other communities. And I saw montages, Halo montages. So I got really kind of obsessed with figuring out, okay, how do I record my Halo video? How do I do editing? How do I do visual effects to make it, to make these montages? And then I got to the point where people were paying me, semi-professional players would pay me to create Halo montages. And then I became a visual effects professional for the school that I went to school with. So I worked there for a couple of years as a visual effects professional. Then I actually left and went to California, San Francisco for a year to do visual effects for Sundance films. So after a while, you don't make very much money in visual effects, which is what I found out. It was a difficult life. Then I went back to development, which is when I came back and started doing Salesforce development. And then one day, a couple of my friends were like, I grew up in a place where almost nobody makes it, I guess. They make a lot of money, get out and have a successful career, I suppose. So I was playing basketball with a couple of my friends, and they were like, you should teach us how to do Salesforce development. I was like, well, that would take me forever. I mean, I would love to. I don't know if you guys have enough time to, because you're working a couple jobs each. And they're like, well, you used to make videos. You should just make videos of Salesforce development. And I said, okay. So I made a couple, and then on top of that, after they said that and I went home and thought about it for a few days, I also thought, I'm constantly going from one team to another, having to train people. Maybe this will benefit me, benefit them and benefit me at the same time, if I'm being completely honest. And so then I just decided I'd take a shot at it. And honestly, my first video, if you look at it, is not great. But yeah, that's why I have been making YouTube videos for a very long time. I had a very old channel called Big Mo 10957 where I just uploaded really, really bad Halo montages. And then I had another one called Moville Media that actually has several million views, even though it doesn't have a lot of subscribers. I just used to do visual effects tutorials on it mostly. Then I had another one called Gerry's Guides that I made a video every day for a month, and then I just got burnt out and bored and didn't want to do it. It was like gaming tutorials. Then we got to this one, and it got a lot bigger than I thought it would be, truthfully, but here we are. So
great. But have you been somehow, how to say, have you been some kind of embarrassed when you uploaded the first video or videos? Did you think, oh boy, maybe this is boring, or someone will, I don't know, leave bad comments or something? Or were you just like, let's just upload it?
Yeah, I figured some people would, and some people did on Reddit. Reddit, they're a lot more vocal. In the first videos I made, I always posted every video on Reddit. But I'd gotten very used to it, I'd say. So I was a little bit more used to getting, torn down than maybe the average YouTuber or person that's going to do YouTube stuff, because, my first foray, I guess, into that or adventure into that was the Halo montages. And like I said, the first ones I made were really bad, and people would just beat me down. They'd tell me I was garbage. You should never edit videos again or do anything. And the first couple of videos where they did that, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But I don't know, I just really wanted to do it. And so what I did is I just looked at those comments, because some of them are just douches being rude, and others are very useful. And so I just took the mean comments and helped build to a point where I got better and better and better. And, that showed. And I do the same thing with my videos now. Not everybody is positive on the videos. Some of them get irritated. Some of them point out that I say words more often than I ever thought I said. So I take note of those and try to improve every time. I mean, we're going to make mistakes. My videos aren't perfect. Nobody's ever will be. So I just try to kind of keep that in perspective when I release one, that it is what it is. It's not going to be perfect. I'll survive either way.
Nice. I mean, if you post your videos on Reddit, that's great already, right? So I mean, the community of Reddit is kind of special. So there's a reason that there's a subreddit called Roast Me or something, right? So okay, cool. But what actually motivates you to share your model footage until today? I mean, if it is money, fine. But I guess it's not only about money, right? You don't make a living out of that, I guess. Or do you? I don't know. What's the motivation behind it to still teach people Salesforce coding?
I don't make a lot of money off of it. No, I mean, I definitely do make some, for sure. Like the Udemy course, which I will say, for the hours I put in, is very, compared to like the average developer pay, and at least in the United States, is very little. I probably spent 400 hours on the Udemy course, at least. Probably much more than that. I didn't record it all. And I made about $5,000 off of the Udemy course, which is the first thing I ever asked anybody to pay for. The YouTube channel makes about $200 in ad revenue a month. So it makes $2,400 a year. Not terrible. I appreciate the extra revenue, but again, it's not like life-changing money or anything. I mostly made the videos just because I love making videos, and I thought it would be fun to try, try and take, honestly, I was getting a little frustrated with some of the videos I saw in existence, because I mean, everybody has their own opinion, but some of them weren't quite what I felt like they should be. And I wanted to make a free path for, people like the people I grew up with to maybe get to wherever they wanted to go. So between my desire to make videos and, just my background where I grew up, I got lucky because my dad, when I was a little bit older, when I was like 12 or so, became a doctor. And then I got to go to college, but I still stayed in the same school district area that was not as great. And most of them didn't have those same privileges. So I don't know. I was just trying to make a path for other people to get there if they didn't have, in America, tens of thousands of dollars to pay for college. So
great. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is, I really love your videos, obviously, right? I think that everybody who attends here has seen at least one or even more or even hours of your videos. But I was always thinking about this because I personally learned so much, even if, I also do have a developer's background, but also Salesforce is very specific and one can learn something new every day. And especially I enjoyed all these videos about FFlip. We come to that a little later, because you found a very nice way to explain something which looks terribly complex and which is was pretty badly documented. Explain it in a way which is fun and which makes sense. And I was always asking myself what I just asked, right? Why do you actually do that? And yeah, it's awesome. So this is really cool. Is there something where you say, I mean, if you just mentioned it when you created the Udemy course, 400 hours of work, which are actually in these videos, and I think also on all these YouTube videos, right? I remember this course about the FFlip, where there's a specific story behind it, right? These are several videos, and you have to think about this, I guess, up front, what you will actually do, and then you have, I don't know, those videos or even more, which together are a series about something. So how does this work? How do you do that? Do you really sit down there with a piece of paper and a pen, and then you invest several nights because you also have a day job, or how do you start doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I when I made my first videos, I made them with kind of a script. And the first couple videos I didn't think were good, and I didn't think they represented what I wanted to get out there. You know, like there wasn't enough of my thought process, and there wasn't enough of like, you know, here's the steps my brain and, you know, maybe yours would actually take to get there. So a few videos after my first few, I don't know, it was maybe my fourth or fifth video, I stopped doing that, and I just put bullet points. This is what I want to cover in this video. And then I would just kind of make sure that I hit all the bullet points and talk in between them to figure out, you know, where we were headed. And it felt a lot more natural. So that's kind of what I kept doing. But more specifically, you know, for the course type things, like the Apex Masterclass course, or the FFlib, or the Apex Common course rather, or the Udemy one, I will write down all of the different videos that I want to do, and then figure out the talking points for each of the videos. The AI one was not very difficult in my opinion, but the Apex Common one was extremely difficult. It's probably the most difficult video series I ever made, because I was trying to figure out, all right, this is a complex thing. People hate the Apex Common library because they can't understand it. And I mean, I get it. It's not easy to grasp. So I was trying to figure out in every video, how do I make this easy to understand? So I actually think the first video I made was like the fourth video. It ended up being like the fourth video, because I made it and I was like, well, I'm assuming they know this and this and this and this, and they probably don't. And so I need to go back and explain all these things and, you know, the realm of Salesforce. So hopefully when I get to this video, it makes more sense. So a lot of times I'll work backwards like that. I did that in the Udemy course. I did that with this course. I did that with the Apex Masterclass course. I did it. I've been doing it with the LWC Masterclass course that I may or may not ever get through, where I'll explain something, figure out, oh, I need to explain these other three things too. So yeah, it's a lot of extremely late nights. So I'll go to work all day. I'll get off work. I'll hang out with my kids until they go to sleep around 9:30 p.m. Then I'll get up, and then I'll work from like 10 to 2 or 3 in the morning. Then I'll go to sleep and get up at 8 o'clock again. So
wow. So, but one can say, I think, well, this is, but you still sleep a little bit, right?
Yeah, eventually I'll get tired. So like I'll do that for like 3 or 4 days, and then I'll get completely exhausted, and then I'll go to sleep really early for like 2 or 3 days, and then I'll start it up again.
Okay. And when you work on these videos, do you have to reshoot certain things a lot of times, or is it a run through at once and then it's done? Or
if I get lucky, there's been a few times where I got lucky and I shot it once and I was done, and I just thought, like, this, it's like when you deploy something and it works the first time, you know. Yeah. But most of the time it's like I think on average I probably shoot every video at least 15 times, because I'll shoot it, I'll think about it, I'll hate something, and then I'll reshoot it. And that's not just like the whole video. It'll be like portions of the video, because sometimes I'll cut it and then move on, because I know that I'm going to forget something, and it would be impossible to shoot it all the way through. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the average videos, it takes quite a while. The more complex the topic, the longer it's going to take me to shoot it. The solid design course and the Apex Common course, I probably shot those videos, each of them 60 or 70 times before I felt like they were good enough. So,
but I guess that this also includes that you have to watch yourself all the time, several times, right?
yeah.
Do you still enjoy that, or can't you see yourself anymore?
I mean, I'm fine with it. It's fine. I could always pay somebody to edit it, but I don't want to. Number one, I don't make any money, really all that much money off of it. So paying somebody would be a little bit crazy. And I like editing videos, but yeah, you get used to it after a while.
But thinking about you doing these courses where you basically teach people like me or the audience today complex or less complex concepts about coding in Salesforce, do you also use these videos in your day work, where whatever you do there? I mean, you're a CTA now. I suppose that you just sit in meetings and don't program anymore, right? So do you use your own videos to onboard new people, to train them? Do you tell them, okay, here, watch this video series, and then you're good to go?
Yeah, when I onboard new people, which has been a long time, I've had the same staff, minus people that, our contract will get bigger or smaller because I work in a consulting firm. I've worked for the same place for 6 years now, and none of the developers have left in 6 years. So I haven't had to train anybody but one new person. We switched a business analyst to a developer, and so I've been training her for the last 6 months or so. But yeah, that's normally what happens. I'll just send them that kind of material. I have a lot more that training material that I built specifically for, where I work, and then I'll send it to them. But yeah, unlike most CTAs, I may be one of the exceptions. I'm sure there are others that are the exception too, but I still do write code every day. I couldn't get away from. I didn't want to get away from it. Whenever I agreed to take the CTA exam, I even asked my company, I was like, okay, if I take this, like you're suggesting, and I pass it, can I still, write code? And they're like, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do. So most of my days are in meetings with CTOs or whoever else, but still a couple hours a day I write code. So
that's great. I would miss that. I mean, yeah, it's nice deep down in the machine room where it's silent and you can just do beautiful things by writing code.
Yeah.
So when I'm still collecting questions here. So everybody in the audience, I see your questions here. I copy them, so it's fine. I try to somehow move them in here. So when you teach, what do you think? What's the biggest misconceptions new developers have about Apex? Differentiating between developers who do have a developer background outside of the world of Salesforce and the ones who are completely new to the field. So which say, okay, I want to become a developer. I like Salesforce. I want to work in this area now. Or to make the question even more complex, people who already work in Salesforce, right? Doing fantastic things and using flows and all these other visual tools to create business solutions, and they now want to go the next steps. So yeah, what's the biggest misconceptions they bring with that?
I don't know. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that or things that people who get into development lack and maybe don't want to do is, in my opinion, what makes a developer great is not whether or not they are extremely good at, knowing how to write code. It's their creativity, right? I think we kind of like called or that there's this kind of misconception in general that development is not a creative thing. But in my opinion, the best developers are not necessarily the ones that have a CS degree or an IT degree. They're the ones that are the most creative and can think, way outside of just the bounds of whatever programming language they're in. So that's one of the things that, developers on my team, I try to teach them to the best of my ability how to be creative, because I think that's what sets a great developer who will eventually become, maybe a great architect or whatever it is they want to be Maybe it is just an exceptional developer. That's what sets them apart. So the building your creative abilities is probably the number one thing that will set you apart. The other thing outside of your creative abilities is your ability to be able to articulate what you're trying to say, right? If you aren't good at explaining technical things in simplistic terms, it'll be very hard for you to ever move up, I guess, if you have any desire to move up. So creativity, your ability to speak and get the point across, but not in technical terms. And then the last one, in my opinion, is to never think too much of yourself, right? I mean, I'm just a guy that likes to write code. We're hopefully everybody that you work with are also just people that like to write code. If you go into a team and you think of yourself as the best, which sometimes, or infallible or whatever, which sometimes a lot of developers will do, at least in my experience, you are limiting yourself, in my opinion. You are so much better and you learn so much more as a team than if you just try to be like the best individual and you get hurt when somebody tells you, okay, maybe we could do it better this way, or you get hurt when a product owner tells you, I don't like this design, I think it should be this way. You're all part of a team trying to build the best application you can. So just remembering that you are just a unit in that team that combined make a better thing, kind of like the Power Rangers or something. Individually they probably lose miserably, but together they make that sweet action Megazord. It's an important thing. And so, yeah, I guess creativity, being able to articulate yourself well in conversations, and I guess maybe humility to keep it simple are the three things that I think are most important. All the rest of the stuff will come pretty easy. Software development, writing code is basically just the English language, or really whatever language you want to write in, for the most part. So it'll come.
Nice, I like it. How do you then actually? What's your experience when you work with people who want to start? So they have a certain background in IT, they have a certain background in Salesforce, obviously. Maybe they work as a sophisticated admin for a couple of time now, and they now want to start their first steps into coding because they might figure out, okay, screen flows or record triggered flows are nice, but they have their disadvantages. So how do you guide them on a high level, right? I mean, we don't have the time to go into all the details today, but on a very high level, how do you guide them to their first steps in coding? So, for example, this crazy platform, what's the Salesforce platform? Trailhead. They start by creating some triggers, and then they do all the coding in the triggers, and then there's Reddit who says, "Are you stupid? You can't work in triggers like that. Don't put the business logic there." So how do you start this process, and how do you guide someone to get at a certain point where you feel where you, as someone who's potentially maintaining an overall project, feel confident that you can ship this code?
Well, I probably have a different approach than the vast majority of people, but when somebody new gets onboarded, I intentionally give them the hardest development project that we have, because I want to know all of their weak points so that I can help them, and whether or not they can handle the pressure, because it is super important as a developer that you can handle yourself under pressure. So I'll give them the hardest project. Now, it's not like I leave them on their own. We have, bare minimum 1 hour a week, if not 2 to 4 hours a week, where me and the developer will work together on whatever they're doing, and I'll show them, okay, this is the next steps you need to do, or this is where you made a mistake, or this is how you could have been more efficient, and here's how you do it. And as far as why I always do this, outside of, you know, figuring out their weak points and so that I can help them, and figuring out how to, whether or not they can work under pressure and how to help them work under pressure. It's because in the event that they don't quit, which I've never actually had anybody quit, so that's a positive, I suppose. After they do the hardest thing in a sprint, they won't question themselves again, right? Like, you just built the most complex thing in this app, and yes, you did have my help, and of course you had the help of the rest of the team that you're a part of too, but you built it. You did it. You now know how to do all of these very complicated tasks. You have no reason to doubt yourself anymore. You know you can come to me, you know you can come to the team, and you know that you are capable of building even the most complex thing. So it hopefully gives them some sense of accomplishment and knowledge that they really can be as good as they think they can be. And it also gives me the ability to help them a lot better than anything else. So that's my way of doing things. I'm sure other people would say I'm crazy, but you know, on the upside, if everything did go wrong, then that just means I get a ridiculously fun development project to do in like 3 days. So, so it's all upside for me.
I totally agree with you. I also like to push people into cold water, and I'm pretty sure that some people in the audience will agree on that I like to do that, because I also like, you learn swimming when you fall into the water, right? And I think that's a very good approach. I also like that. We don't leave the people alone, obviously, right? So we help them, we support them, we motivate them. However, you have to start at some point. So why not start with something very, very complex? That's nice. Yeah. So let me shortly go through some questions which we had from the audience. If I covered them already. What's your feeling on onboarding for a new candidate into Salesforce? Is it still a growing market? We come to this AI topic a little later. However, would you still say, I think this is the question about, is it still a valid job to become a Salesforce developer nowadays? Is this something one should do, one could do, from your personal point of view?
In my opinion, yeah, there's still a need. I mean, my company is always hiring, which, I mean, I know that Accenture is like one of the biggest companies in the world, development wise anyway, or software development wise anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think there's still plenty of jobs. There's tons of them. And the more you use, you know, if people are worried about AI taking jobs, the more that you use AI, the more you'll start to realize it's not going to take your job. You know, it can speed up your job for sure. I mean, I use it to some extent, honestly, every day to help me Google for things faster or whatever else. But yeah, it's not going to take your job. And yeah, the Salesforce market is still growing. It's not, I mean, you can see the numbers, right? They produce them every year. So it just gets bigger and bigger. Now, the issue is there's probably more competition than there has been ever, because Salesforce is kind of everywhere. I mean, every business or a deal of businesses use Salesforce now. So do federal institutions and stuff like that. So you just have a lot more competition. Maybe you've got a lot more people who think getting into Salesforce as a Salesforce developer is maybe easy and quick to do or something like that, which I would say is not entirely true, but whatever. But just for instance, for me, back when I was trying to get back into software development, nobody knew me. Nobody cared about me. I didn't have a particularly stellar background in software development, and I had to apply to over 400 places before anybody gave me a shot. So, you know, if you're just stopping on application 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever else, it's probably going to take you, if you're lucky, 4 to 6 months of applying nonstop to jobs before you get your first shot. And then when you get your first shot, don't waste it. If you have to stay up all night to be as good as they need you to be, then that's what I ended up doing. I got my opportunity for like the first probably year minimum. I was up every night. I'd work from 8 to 5. I'd stay up from 5 to 10, building things, reading documentation, doing whatever to try to make sure that I was as good as I needed to be to deliver for whoever was paying me at the time. So yeah, it wasn't easy then. It's not easy now, but I think it's still growing, and I think it's still a viable job if you really want to do it.
Yeah, I think that the question, I also had the same question, right? Because when you take a look around in your filter bubbles on, I don't know, on LinkedIn or on any IT related news or something, there's always this hype train going around telling everybody that AI will kill specifically our jobs. And sometimes when you read that, you are in between, oh, maybe I have to switch the job, and then you sit in front of some project and then you leverage AI tools and then you're like, okay, I'm safe, at least for the next 5 years, so that should be fine. But what do you think? How will AI transform actually our specifically Salesforce development? But I think this is true for all kind of development. How will it change things within the next 3 to 5 years? Something. I mean, systems are going better, right? I think we can agree on that. We ourselves are getting better in leveraging these tools by, for example, getting some nice training from your Udemy course. What do you think? How will this change, or how will it evolve?
Well, first of all, I'm no prophet, so I can't guarantee anything. My opinions will be true, but
Sure.
I have always been interested in machine learning, and so back in college, I did some stuff with machine learning, and not an enormous amount has really changed other than the compute power and the a little bit of the underlying architecture, and then the amount of data that's able to be aggregated right now to train those models. So let me just put it this way. They've been building, like I say in my course, right? They've been trying to build in an AI tool to replace us all for 80 something years, at least. And we've got basically to a similar point every time where it gets a little bit better, but it's not good enough to outright replace us. And just like some of the, I can't remember the guy's name. I honestly can't pronounce it anyway, even if I remembered it. But the guy that was the lead of Facebook's team, who's one of kind of like the founding fathers of AI, he doesn't even believe that AI is at a place where it could replace us, right? And this is the guy that basically built the foundation for everything that we use today. He thinks, and rightfully so, that you would have to have a major innovation in tech, whether that's quantum computing, which is not going to happen anytime soon, despite what everybody wants you to think, or a different way for your AI to learn and take in its environment to be able to, replicate what a human can do day in and day out. So do I think that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? I don't think so. Do I think it's going to happen in the next 20 years? I honestly don't think it's going to happen in the next 20 years either. 50 years from now, maybe. Because at that point, maybe we will have quantum computing and we'll have, AI that can, take in all of its surroundings and truly learn. That's not really what it's doing right now. And be borderline sentient. So I don't know, maybe 50 years from now, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Long story short.
That's okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a valid point. So we nobody should get scared. Nobody should get nervous about losing a job or something. And I think also nobody should stop wanting to become a developer. If you want to become a developer, try your very best to become one, and don't get scared of any AI solution or whatever. Instead, try to leverage this, which brings me to my next question. Is there any recommendation you would have for someone who's not only likes to watch YouTube videos or reads the documentation? Do people actually read documentation? I hope so. What's your recommendation leveraging AI tools in order to support the learning process, right? Not just, hey, AI built me something and then I'm good, but to actually learn something. Because I think that specifically for programming, you can't do that much wrong, can't you? So what's your recommendation here?
So my recommendation, and I actually in that Udemy course, I say something similar later in the videos, but my recommendation is if you're trying to learn how to become a Salesforce developer, or you're a more junior developer and you're trying to learn and get better, is to not use it to write code and use it for essentially asking a question and getting ideas aggregated for you. And the reason I say that, and the other thing is to make sure that you ask it in your global rule set to provide links to the documentation it's using so that you can go out and double check and make sure that it's not lying to you. It didn't just like aggregate information wrong and tell you the wrong things. If you tell it to provide links, it'll provide you links to whatever it sourced its information from, which is super useful. So I mean, I love using it for this. If I am trying to learn a new tool that's more obscure or something, I will use, Klein and Claude, or Klein and ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, but GPT-5 or some iteration of that, and ask it, hey, I want to do this with this tool. Can you tell me how to do that? And it will go out and aggregate all that information for you and put it in front of you in like 3 seconds, and it'll cost you a fraction of a cent. And that to me is worth it, because I would otherwise probably spend 15 to 20 minutes Googling different things and figuring it out and aggregating it into maybe my own Word document or whatever. It's really excellent at that. And then the other thing is, if you're a junior developer and you don't have more of a senior or an intermediate developer you can work with, after you write your code and after you've gotten it to start working, asking it, how could I improve this, or make it better somehow, is very helpful too. And again, make sure you ask it to source its documentation for its opinions so that you can read about it, all that kind of stuff. But it'll quickly give you answers that are more often than not generally correct. And it'll do that really quick without you having to know things that you wouldn't maybe know to Google. So it's super useful, especially with document aggregation and just teaching you really quick. But make sure to ask it for those links. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark. You never know.
And on top of that, click on these links, Rick, because sometimes you also land in for Nirvana. So yeah, but absolutely. I mean, I'm also coding for a little longer now, and there's also live before Salesforce. So we are used to read documentation, and I was always a huge fan of documentation. And honestly, I mean, we can complain about Salesforce on a lot of places. The documentation is not that bad. Yeah, I've seen worse. So it's okay-ish, and specifically for the development part, it sometimes makes sense to read the stuff which is written there. Okay, wow. So coming again, or talking again about AI and coding and development, what do you think what developers still get wrong when they are coding with AI? I mean, you're mentioning some of the concepts, right? And one eye-opener actually was, again, in your Udemy course, the thing about all these rules, right? Because I see lots of people using ChatGPT or any other browser-based chat, and they ask these questions, and Chatty tries to answer them as good as it can. However, when you work with tools like Klein or Cursor or whatever, you can provide all these rules. You can do this with somehow in ChatGPT, but not as good as with these rules. So this is what you mentioned, and this is what really makes the daily work even better. However, what's something where developers still get the thing wrong when they work together with AI? What do you think?
I think the thing that most people get wrong more often than anything else is asking it to do very complex tasks all in one shot, right? This thing, AI, whatever you want to call it, is really, its brain is definitely not as capable of as your own, even though it has maybe more information than your brain holds, right? So I'll see a lot of people who will ask, their AI tool to build some big app, and it'll just be, it'll be like a paragraph maybe, or a couple paragraphs to build some huge app that would take you and I maybe dozens of stories, user stories, to piece together what we're supposed to build. It's just not going to work. I mean, like, you can ask it to do that and maybe it outputs something, but it's going to output something really poor, and it's almost certainly not going to work. What you need to do to get really high quality results are basically two things. One, provide it with rules and example code of, all the things you expect yourself or your developers to do. So make sure that you provide and send that in to your context window, what your AI agent is supposed to output. And then the second thing is break things down into modular pieces. Give it a small task that it could understand and you could easily understand, and then it will more than likely output maybe not a perfect result, but a much closer to usable result than if you just asked it to build one big thing. So whenever I don't normally use it, truthfully, to build my code, because I find it to not be all that much faster than if I wrote it myself, except for some UI things. Sometimes I will use it for CSS because I'm like, I don't really want to spend 2 hours to writing the CSS. But yeah, in my experimentation, if you do it that way, you give it a very small, straightforward task and give it rules, it's going to output something that is generally directionally accurate. So the more honed in you can get it, the better your result.
Nice. So is there any recent wow effect when working with AI, when you worked personally with AI, where you thought, oh wow, that's cool, that's interesting, or something where you say, okay, interesting approach? Is there something?
Honestly, my favorite thing, there's been two things that I've really loved it for. The first is when I know exactly what I want a single element on a page to look like, I can tell it what I want and it will almost always get it right and write the code right. So I don't have to like second guess myself. So I'll ask it a lot of the times, all right, I want this element on the page to look this way in my Lightning Web Component. Can you build that for me and then explain why you did it that way? And that's helped me get even more proficient at CSS while saving me tons of time. And then the other thing I've really liked it for is refactoring code that was not written using the Apex Common Library, because I use Apex Common Library everywhere still, to use the Apex Common Library. So I've written a bunch of special prompts for that, but it does it like perfect almost every time with the prompts that I've written, and it saves me, tons and tons of time. So those are my favorite things. Test classes are an easy one too, but I don't know if that's really that exciting. So
I like it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of writing tests, obviously, not for the code coverage, but specifically for testing the stuff we build. So, and I enjoy AI doing it for me because it's rapidly faster in typing than I am. And I sometimes think, oh, well, that's a nice test approach. However, I also, I like it when you have all these rules and all these, specifically these rules, how the AI should behave while working with you. I like when I discover that it's certain a specific rule, right? Might it just be something very small, which you have written somewhere in all your rules, and then you recognize, oh, it's actually following this approach, and I like that. It's like a good employee who actually likes to, or who follows what you've told them. Nice. So I also have these wow moments when I like to build backend stuff, right? And I like when we build something in LWC or something similar. I like when things look like Salesforce and smell like Salesforce, and it has a UI which is more or less Salesforce-ish somehow. And sometimes I'm really impressed when you describe something you want to have in a very specific detail, and you do it in a way that the AI knows how to work, and then you get a UI which actually looks good and works. So this is also something which I really enjoy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone is asking, and maybe it fits before we slightly switch topic also in terms of time. Are there any AI tools you actually recommend? Any specific LLMs or something where you say, okay, this is something which is really nice? It's fine if you say no. And people in the audience, please keep in mind that this is a personal opinion, and this video is not sponsored for someone.
Yeah, nobody's paying me, sadly. I'd take the AI money, I guess, but no. I've had so many people ask for me to do sponsorship things in my videos, and I've declined all of them. I don't know how many, over 100. But I don't like doing ad sponsorships. I don't like salespeople either. I think you said something about that at the beginning. But anyway, to answer your question, the tools that I like the most are Klein, despite it being imperfect. I mean, I do like the newer, whatever, I can't remember the name of it. I'm forgetting it for some reason, but the newer AI tool that Salesforce has created, it's basically just a clone of Klein, Agentforce for developers, or wait, Agentforce 5. So that's what they call it now. There it is. I don't mind that. It's okay. It's certainly much better than they used to have, and it's free. So, use the free thing if it works for you. But I like Klein and GPT for reasoning. So for like planning what I'm going to do, mostly because GPT is cheaper than Claude, and its output is pretty similar to what Claude is going to suggest to you anyway. And then I like Claude Sonnet personally, to output the actual code. So I think those together work out good. And the reason that I like Klein as opposed to, say, Cursor or whatever else is because there's no kind of like LLM arbitrage going on. When I pay Klein, I'm paying just for my LLM cost, and that's it. So there's 100% transparency. I don't need to guess, how many credits I have or whatever else. Plus Klein is all open source too. So
yeah, which actually means that you could potentially fix the small bugs it still has. So which is great. Yeah. I mean, yeah, also a fanboy of Klein. I have also some issues with it, right? I mean, I use IntelliJ, not Visual Studio Code, and sometimes it's freezing. I recognized, okay, it started to freeze when the conversation is pretty long, which might be a good thing or not. So anyway, okay, wow. So let me shortly get through the questions which we still have about AI-related stuff. Yeah, okay, good. We talked about still becoming a developer. I think that's fine. One last thing actually about teaching and training. What's your opinion, or what's your idea when we think about Trailhead, right? Because most people who start jumping into the Salesforce world, they sometimes land on Trailhead, and then they do these crazy courses. So what's your opinion Trailhead in terms of starting to learn something about development in Salesforce?
Trailhead isn't a bad place to start, I suppose. It's not the greatest place to learn how to be a developer. There's a lot of bad practices, unfortunately, still in Trailhead. So you might learn some things that you will later have to undo, I guess, or need to undo, especially if you work in a bigger org. But there's nothing wrong with starting there. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, the best place to start still is the Advanced Apex by, I'm forgetting his name, Dan Appleman. I still think that's a great book. I thought it was a great book 10 years ago when I read it. I've read the more recent ones. I think it's a good one. But yeah, I mean, Trailhead is fine, especially because it's free. But there are just some places here and there that you're going to learn how to do something, but it's maybe not really the best way to have learned how to do it. So development is not really Salesforce's focus area, right? They started on the whole no software thing. So
yes, they did. Did you ever think, because someone was asking this, did you ever thought about writing a book for yourself? Or yourself, or being part of a team writing a book?
I've considered it. I've had about 8 different proposals from all the major book people. I get 1 or 2 every year where they ask me, do you want to write a book? And there was one point where I almost decided to write a book on my own with Jonathan Gillespie, the guy in charge of, that made Nebula Logger. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I can't say I know for sure that's how you pronounce his last name. And then, why am I forgetting it? The Joys of Apex author. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. Why am I?
I will look it up for you. Just continue.
Not that I know.
James.
There we go.
Yeah, you mean his blog, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So us 3, we talk, every couple months or so. Yeah, James Simone, and I did a thing with him on my YouTube channel forever ago. But there was a point where we considered doing an Apex book together. I kind of got pulled into the whole CTA thing, and that basically wasted all my time. So I'll be honest, I don't really have a lot of desire to write a book for a few reasons. One, for a tech book, it gets outdated almost instantly. So, I'd rather just make a Udemy course and I can update it in a few months when it becomes outdated or something. And then the second thing is, I already wrote a book one time. It's not about Salesforce. It's about Harvest Moon 64. I learned MIPS assembly and reverse engineered this old N64 game that I loved, and I made this 384-page full color with custom artwork that either I made or I had adapted from older guides, and kind of brought it all together. And honestly, it was horrible, man. I mean, I liked getting it done, but it took me 2 years, and I don't know that I really want to make another book. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people like to do videos, some people like to write books. So, okay, that was actually an interesting answer. Okay, in terms of time also, maybe we shortly switch a little bit, because I have so many other questions as well, and AI is obviously a big topic. And but talking about developing in Salesforce again, and maybe pushing AI a little bit to the side. For now, what's about Apex Commons and all these libraries which you like to use, which you teach a lot, and where there's lots of arguing going on, at least on my own filter bubble, where people complain how complex the stuff is, how outdated it is, how even shitty it is, besides from people working behind it and having some good ideas. So what's your opinion on that one, and why do you like it? Why do you use? Why you just said it a couple of minutes ago, right? That you still like to use it, and it sounded a bit like an excuse, which it shouldn't be. So why do you like it? And why would you still continue using it? And why don't you jump on this train about clean Apex code? So
yeah, there's a bunch of reasons. The only person that's actually ever put out something that I thought, maybe I should consider switching it to is actually James Simone. He took the Apex Common Library and optimized it in a bunch of different places that it wasn't optimized in, which was pretty cool. That was one of the first times forever ago that I think I reached out to him, but we'd been talking on the SFXD Discord for a long time before that. But the reason that I like the Apex Common Library is there's a few reasons. Number one, it's a library. It's not a framework, right? So it's a library that has all of the things that you need to build giant enterprise applications or orgs, right? I don't have to go out into the world and try to piece together things to make them work together to get what I need. I just have everything I need right there, right? So if I want to build a whole bunch of application factories in my org that can be independent of each other, I don't have to go find library A, B, C, D, and E and fuse them together to make them work. This just works. And then if I want to do mocking or unit tests, right? Apex mocks just works with the way that the Apex Common Library has been built. So there's no guesswork in it, I guess, is one of the big things. There's no guesswork. It just works, right? I don't have to build anything custom that's unique to my org. I can use this well-built library that thousands of people, thousands of some of the best developers in our ecosystem know. And if I need a new developer, they can learn it really quick, right? So that's a huge aspect of it. Plus, I am familiar with the guy that runs and maintains the Apex Common Library. And I know that, he works at Steampunk. I know that Steampunk uses it for basically everything. So the library is never going to go away, right? It's never going to be left out in the wind or forgotten about, not upkept, something like that. This is an extremely important library to thousands of orgs and thousands of ISVs. So there's no guesswork, right? I don't have to think about it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to become outdated. It may be suboptimal occasionally. In some places, it could be faster, but I'll trade reliability, scalability, and broad general knowledge of a very well-built library for a few seconds here and there. That said, there are plenty of other great libraries, not great libraries, great tools to take a look at. I know Siraj P, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He put out a good unit test mocking framework. That's great. I know that, Pablo has put out his Apex Well Architected framework. It's a great framework, but like I mentioned before, it's not a library. So you're going to have to take a bunch of different pieces and fit them together. But well thought out framework for sure. No, it's just hard. There's really, in my opinion, there's really no complete comparison to the Apex Common Library. And I've tried a few. I've tried to move off of it, and there's nothing else. It's just all there, everything you need,
Yeah.
So
I mean, you said in the beginning that you mostly work on very, very big and complex orgs, right? Where I suppose there's also a ton of code. And would you recommend for someone who's new to this library and framework discussion to also leverage this our favorite library in a smaller org, or do you say there's I mean, obviously if you just have a single trigger it doesn't make sense, right? But if things are growing and you introduce a library like Apex Commons very early into the project, it can have advantages, but it brings also some, well, disadvantages is the wrong word. Maybe it has some overhead, right? People are complaining that there is so much overhead. People are complaining that you have these big selector classes, which is, from my opinion, wrong. I mean, you can, if you do it right, you don't need these big selector classes. Anyway, do you think that there's a line where it makes sense, or does it make sense from the beginning? As soon as you open the developer console the first time, first of all, put in Apex Commons, and then you can start working.
In my opinion, there's no harm to adding it to any org, but you might not really ever need it. If you're in a smaller org that's only going to have 50 people or something in it, right? Or you're only going to have 1 or 2 apps in your org. You're not going to have hundreds or a dozen or something like that. The reason that I started using the Apex Common library, and the reason that I find it so strange when people complain about it, because, I mean, I don't know everybody's deal, right? I kind of feel like if you'd have used it, a lot of these complaints aren't real, other than the optimization problems that James Simonis pointed out and fixed. So you could use his alternative library, which is, out there. The reason I started using it is because I had worked in so many orgs, right? So many. And I'd worked in some of them for very long periods of time, even if I was on other projects simultaneously or something. And the biggest issue that I constantly ran into was we'd build app A without thinking about what if there was an app B or an app C or an app D in the org. And we build app A and then we create app B. And now we accidentally or intentionally, because we have to, overlap A and B's code. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but eventually app A and B grow and grow and grow, and maybe app C comes in app D. And then every time you want to make an update to app A, you have to ask B, D, and C if they're okay with it, and make sure that they test their functionality to make sure we didn't break it or something like that. And it just slows down everything, right? Not to mention, it makes it harder to keep track of what functionality is built for app A and what's built for app B and all these other things. So I spent probably a year and a half, something like that, trying to figure out how can I prevent that from ever happening again, right? Because it's so irritating. It causes developers to leave. It causes your BAs to leave. It causes your projects to tank, your stakeholders to get angry because everything starts to slow down. So I spent at least a year and a half trying to figure out how can I never have this happen again. And what I ended up on was the application factory. If you use the application factory pattern, you can basically kind of modularize everything for application A, B, C, and D into their own little application factories. And I thought, I actually started to build out my own framework for it. And I thought, well, maybe before I spend another 500 hours on this, I should just go look and see if there's anything out there. And I found a few things, and I landed on the Apex Common library. And then I talked to a few people that had used it before, and they said it could do it, but there was nothing documented for it, so I couldn't really figure out what the hell I was supposed to do to make things work. So then I read Andrew Fawcett's book that he wrote for not just Apex Common Library, but for it and this kind of whole application factory modularization type stuff, basically application architecture for ISVs, which I know is a little different than a normal setup, but it's the same kind of thing. And so I learned how to use the Apex Common Library from his book, and then I put it into practice. And then all of the sudden, none of my problems existed anymore. No developers quit. No functionals quit. None of my projects got terminated. You know, and generally speaking, everything was just quicker and faster. You know, we could build a new feature as fast as we wanted to, and there was nothing getting in the way of that anymore. We didn't have to ask for 15 permissions and time from team A or B or C to test. We just built what we wanted to build and deployed it, and we were done. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're not in a multi-app org, maybe you don't need something this complex. But as soon as you get more than one stakeholder in an org, then you will eventually start to feel that burden, and you'll want to find something, whether it's Apex Common Library or not, to fix that problem. Otherwise, you're going to hate your life. You're going to lose your contracts that you're working on if you're a consulting firm, whatever else, right? So, yeah, I don't know. That's why I say I don't understand why people think you need to build this big. I think it's a misunderstanding of how the library works. You don't need or want a giant application class. You don't need or want a giant selector class. If you're doing any of those types of things, you're using it wrong. In my opinion, you're using it wrong, because
Gotcha.
the value of the package is that you can modularize these applications into their own little section of the world, and you know, it makes for really scalable org. But you know, it's not like there's any instructions that say you've got to do it this way or that way or the other, you know. So unless you go out and use it and actually start trying it out in these, you know, more complex scenarios, I think it's easy to make that mistake. So,
I mean, you said it initially, right? Coding is also about, it's coding, developing, designing something. It's about creativity, right? So sometimes it makes sense that there are not too many rules. So regarding your personally, where would you personally draw the line between clean design and unnecessary abstraction? Where do you say, okay, specifically in your potential, if you can talk about this in your day-to-day life, right, where it's also about budgets and money and time frames and stuff, and sometimes we as developers, we tend to put another level of abstraction in it, or another level of, let's say, beauty to our code, but it takes more time. So where do you personally draw a line and say, okay, that's good enough, let's ship that and let's potentially create some debt or whatever?
If it's hard to interpret, you've done something wrong. So if you have a bunch of like interfaces, if you've like modularized your code to the point where it's just like tons and tons of interfaces, and there's really no benefit to it other than you wanted to use interfaces or something, then you've probably overdone it. And so what I try to do more than anything else with the code is make sure that if not if I look at it, but if my least knowledgeable developer looks at it, can they read it, right? Can they grasp what's going on? And so if they can't figure it out, then there's something inherently wrong with the code, because it would be great, don't get me wrong, it'd be great if you could just have ultra modular code that you could pick up and put wherever you wanted and it worked in all theoretical scenarios. But sometimes the trade-off for that is not worth it, right? Like you said, for cost, money, whatever, but more importantly, for maintainability, right? So what I try to gauge when I'm building something is, all right, I say I'm creating some custom related list, and I need it to display all these custom things for me. How many places am I going to use the related list, or how many places am I going to use the code that it relies on? Theoretically, right? And if I can't think of like more than 2 or 3 that I'm going to reuse it in, I'm just going to keep it as simple as I can until more scenarios pop up, right? And then at that point, I can abstract it however much I need. But without getting too off topic here and going way more in depth than I probably should, figure out how many places you're going to use it. If it's just one for now, keep it simple. When you figure out you need to use it 4, 5, 6 other places, you can abstract it as much as you want. But make sure, however you're writing that abstraction, it's extremely clear what the purpose of the abstraction is and when you are supposed to use it. Because if I look at it, or somebody that's less knowledgeable looks at it and they don't understand it, then even if you abstracted it, you've lost a lot of your benefit, because now you've maybe made this modular thing, but you're the only person that understands it. So if you leave, or we onboard somebody and they need to know how to do it, then we have to train them for multiple hours, if not days or weeks, on how it works, just to get them to start building anything. So I don't know. There's a lot of factors in there, but keep it simple until you don't need it to be, or until you need it to be more complex. And when it's more complex, make sure it's, be very careful of your naming conventions, how you modularize it, why you modularize it, so that it doesn't become so weird and confusing.
That's what you said, right? It's amongst other topics that it obviously should work and should be fast enough and should scale. It's about maintainability, right? Because this is what we do a lot, that we maintain something. So, okay, wow. Yeah, I mean, slowly we have to come slowly to an end. I obviously have tons of more questions. Let me shortly go through my list. I have 2 questions. One is easily answered, and the other one is a very quick one, I guess. One of my questions is Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ, and why? I've seen you recently working a lot with Visual Studio Code, but I remember the good old days where you've also been in the fan club of IntelliJ, and obviously Illuminated Cloud is awesomely great plugin for IntelliJ. What's your favorite and why?
IntelliJ and Illuminated Cloud 2 for sure. I only use Visual Studio Code in my videos because so many people have requested it. It's the free one. It's the one that Salesforce pushes because it's their product. And because I probably had several hundred people tell me that they wanted to see it in Visual Studio Code, or were struggling to keep up because it was in IntelliJ, I switched back to Visual Studio Code because I knew a couple things. Number one, it would be more helpful. And number two, anybody that's using IntelliJ is going to be able to follow along if I'm doing it in Visual Studio Code. So apparently the reverse is not always true, but yeah, for sure IntelliJ is my favorite one by a landslide.
Okay, I mean, it's a little bit up to everybody personally what they like, right? And honestly, Visual Studio Code is for free, and IntelliJ costs a little money. And if you cannot afford it initially, then it makes sense. Okay, gotcha. So when you would describe, 1 second, I don't get my own question here. Yeah, if Salesforce would ask you to design one new feature or to rebuild something from scratch, what should that be? What would you really like to rebuild specifically? Maybe if that's possible from a developer's point of view. So what do you need as a developer? What are you missing? But also maybe from a Salesforce platform point of view, what would you say? Oh, this is so crappy, I would love to rebuild it.
Well, there's a lot of things on the Salesforce platform I like.
Choose your top 3, please.
I think there's the one that most developers would like, which is them to at least introduce reflection into Apex, which I know is it may never happen. That would be so complex for them to do at this point with all the code that's running out there. That's a huge ask, but it would be very useful. At that point, if the Apex Common Library didn't update itself, it would definitely go extinct. I might write my own library if they ever put that out, because it would make such a significant difference. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of features in other languages that I would like to be brought over as well. But again, everything with the Apex library would be challenging to fix. You know, the way that the platform runs and the Java interpreter behind the scenes that does all that work. As far as Salesforce features, I think they would do well to fix the, in my opinion, very broken trash sharing for products and price books. That would be great. I think they could do a whole lot better with Revenue Cloud or CPQ. I think Marketing Cloud Engagement, the separate platform that used to be Exact Target, needs an enormous amount of updates. And I think B2B Cloud is a horrible platform, but I do like a lot of things. I like Service Cloud. I like Experience Cloud. I think there are a lot of features they could add to Experience Cloud, but I like both of those. And I like most of the features of Sales Cloud. So I actually think they've done halfway decent with Agentforce, which is saying a lot because I don't think I've liked most of their new products for quite a while. I wish they would kill Omni Studio. I'll tell you that much. That's, you know.
Maybe we lose some people now. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, Matt, one last final question, at least from my side. I think, guys in the audience who are left, I think we more or less covered all your questions as well. One last question, Matt. What are the next projects? Without putting any pressure on you, obviously. So, what would you like to do? What are you working on? If you're working on something which you can already share, is there something where you say, okay, this is 2026, Matt Gerry?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Which is absolutely fine. Yeah.
I wish I could say I still had the level of drive I did to make videos. But it's gotten harder and harder to make them over the years. Number one, you can only make so many videos about the same topic before it gets a little bit boring. Number two, I have a lot of other non-Salesforce projects that I intended to start. I mean, I don't know how many people know, but I was only really going to do coding with the Force for like 2 years. And then it just became so popular that I kept making videos because so many people wanted me to. So when I make another one, I can't say for sure. I'm sure I will. I really do want to finish the Lightning Web Component Masterclass at some point. But it has so many episodes, man, or videos. It's like hundreds of videos, and I've got through like 60 or 70 of them, and right now I'm not doing anything so that I can maybe have the will to make another 130 videos.
Oh boy, that's a lot. Yeah, I see.
But yeah, I don't know. Plus, I'll tell you, it gets kind of, and it sounds strange, but it gets kind of weird. Like I didn't make videos to become a a well-known person. I just made videos originally with the intent of helping my friends, and then you know, I guess to some extent helping myself train people. And it's gotten huge, and I don't know that I personally love being a whatever you want to call it, an influencer or something. So it's just weird. And then, you know, there are also times where I've had people borderline stalk me, and I don't even have that many people following me, you know. So so I always feel I feel a little weird now. Like I made the Udemy course, yes, to make some money, but I also made it because I was like, if my YouTube thing grows much more, it could get like even more out of control from my perspective. And I don't want to be and I ended up being, I guess, a well-known person, but I don't really know that I want to be. I kind of want to live in the middle of nowhere and just write code in my basement. So
which actually, well, thank you so much, which actually answers the final question, right? That you're sitting in the basement there, yeah?
Yeah. Every video I've ever shot, I'm sitting in my basement. This has pretty much been all I've ever wanted since I was a kid, is a room in a basement that you know, had a bunch of video games in it, and yeah, it's probably where I'll sit for most of my life.
Matt, wow, thank you so much. I think if that's fine for everybody, we will slowly close it now. It was super fun, Matt. I thank you so much for joining here today, for creating all these wonderful, helpful videos, blog entries, LinkedIn entries, Udemy courses. I wish that you keep up your fantastic work. I personally know at least a dozen of developers who learned so much from you, including me, which is absolutely awesome and insane. So thank you. Thanks for joining today. And maybe we repeat this at one point in the future, that we grab a very specific topic and then we go really deep into it. As you just said, you don't want to go that deep here. Let's see how many attendees we will then have. Thank you so much, Mike. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been a great time, and I have no idea how I ended up helping so many people, but I'm very glad it you know, all the junk I wasted time on was helpful to a few people. So
it was, man. So I recorded the session here. Unfortunately, I don't know if somebody recognized I started the recording way too late. However, I recorded it. I will edit it with my little editing skills, and then I'll put it on YouTube and share the link with all of you. Audience, please feel free to take a look to Matt's Udemy course if you haven't yet. It's definitely worth every dime. And yeah, thank you again. Have a nice Christmas. Enjoy the time off. I will now switch off the computer. That's 1 hour a day where the computer has to be off. Thank you so much one more time. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice Christmas. See you soon. Bye.
See ya.